This video is sponsored by Thrive Market. Maybe you've seen in some of our other videos a freezer full of chicken. Pasture-raised, non-GMO, insanely delicious, Thanksgiving dinner worthy chicken that would cost us about $5.50 a pound if we bought it locally. The amount of chicken in that freezer would have cost us over $1,600, and we raised it ourselves for about $800 less than that. Ironically enough, as we've said before, we've got about 1/8 of an acre of growing space for our garden, and that's enough vegetables and berries and hopefully grapes soon to feed our family for an entire year. And it takes about exactly that much space for us to raise a year's worth of chicken here on our homestead. And I understand that some of you are in an HOA and you can't have chickens, and there's other limiting factors, but I'm hoping that by showing you the simple way that we do this, it'll give you some ideas of how you can do it for yourself. So I want to take you through the whole process of how we raised our broiler chickens this year. Quick disclaimer, this is the first time that I've ever tried recording a video in stages over several months, so I guess we'll see how it goes. So first, let's go back to the beginning, picking up the baby chicks, and we'll get back to some of the cost and space details as we go. We're on our way to pick up our broiler chicks from the post office. We order them from Meyer Hatchery, and they come in the mail and we got to pick them up. Last year, they were all dead. Now that's the only time that's ever happened, but I am a little bit anxious, and so I really hope these chicks will be okay. The other thing is, before we get them back home to the heat lamps, I have to stop and run a couple errands first. And so I've got the heat cranked up in the back of the van so we can put them in here and they'll stay warmer until we can get them home. I had to grab a couple things at Tractor Supply, and while we were there, I ended up buying some ducklings and layer chicks, which I talked more about in another video, so I'm not going to talk about it here, but I just wanted to mention that because those chicks got raised in the same pen as our broiler chicks. Oh yeah, nice and toasty in here. I'll start off with one of my first and best tips is to not have your brooder too warm. Before I go any farther here, I got this brooder halfway set up in an earlier video, just with the heat lamps and spreading hay on the floor, and I'll explain more about that stuff in a second. My brooder is 5 foot by 10 foot, and it's built out of patio doors that I got for free from where I used to work. The original intent was for it to be a seed starting greenhouse, but we just start all of our seeds indoors, and now this makes the perfect brooder. This is more than you would need though. A brooder could be as simple as a big cardboard box or just a small area penned off in your garage. Just think simple here. I wish that I had electric in this building, but I don't. And extension cords work. We're just really careful about it and everything, and we don't leave it out here when we're not using it. The nice thing about having this 5 by 10 brooder and dividing it in half for the chicks when they're little is that I can also just keep all of the feed and bedding over here in this other half and not have to worry about them getting into it. So once they're a little bigger, this hay in here will work just fine as bedding or straw or whatever. But when they're really little, I like to have some finer stuff like either sawdust or this shredded straw so that they're not tripping over the big pieces of hay and straw. I like to set their feed and water up on bricks just so that they can get up onto the bricks and eat from there. Works a lot better than them just being down on the ground, so it doesn't like get all the bedding into it as easily. I'm gonna put their water in there, and we add some apple cider vinegar to their water, just a splash of it, and that helps with their digestion and their immunity. All right. Chicks are an odd mixture of hardiness and fragility. It's amazing what they can go through. These things were shipped through the mail and they're doing fine. But then a few missteps, you did a few things wrong, and you can have them start dying really fast. So I want to give you my best tips for keeping these things alive. These here are Rainbow Ranger chicks. They do really, really well. I really like them. Cornish crossbirds, they grow faster, but they're also a lot harder to take care of. One thing you got to watch out with the Cornish cross is they don't eat too much. And if they do, they can end up getting heart attacks, leg problems, they can die. But with these, I don't have to worry about it. I can put as much feed in here as I want and they won't overeat. Once the chicks are settled into their brooder, they just need a few basic things: fresh water, food, dry bedding, and warmth under their heat lamps without drafts. Then just keep an eye on them and enjoy them in their little fuzzball stage because it won't last long.
We work really hard to grow our own food, but there's still some things that we need to get in the grocery store. Healthy options can be pretty expensive, so we're always looking for ways to cut costs without sacrificing quality. Thrive Market is an online membership-based grocery store with guaranteed savings on every single order. I actually saved $26 on just this box of food, and if you find a lower price somewhere else, they'll match it. It's summertime right now, and everybody is whipping out all the treats and snacks and things, and I just really like to have some healthier options for my kiddos. I don't want them to like completely miss out on some of that fun, but I also want healthier options. For some reason, our Kroger does not have healthy graham crackers and they don't have healthy marshmallows. So Thrive Market has come to the rescue for us so many times. We even got some gluten-free graham crackers that are absolutely delicious. If you're looking for something on a specific diet, you can just use the filter on Thrive Market's website for like keto, gluten-free, paleo, dairy-free, whatever it is that you need. I'm super excited about these Siete potato chips. They have really, really amazing ingredients for a great price, and they're also fried in avocado oil, so you're not getting all the bad seed oils. And you know us, we go through a ton of collagen. We like to add this to our coffee and tea for lots of protein. Cody puts this in his chocolate milk. So I love getting this on Thrive as well for the great price. Right now is a really great time to join Thrive Market because not only will you get 30% off your first order plus a free gift, but Thrive Market is also having their biggest sale of the summer this week. So go to thrivemarket.com/morethanfarmers to start saving today.
I will say though that one of the biggest things to watch for with baby chicks is, for me anyways, that I've found, is that it doesn't get too hot in the brooder. I've never had an issue with chicks dying or getting sick or anything like that from being too cold. There's a thermometer on the side here, and I saw the other night, I think it got down to like 40 degrees in here, but both of these heat lamps were on and the chicks were able to get under that. They were totally fine, only a couple days old. I have had problems though, when it gets like 80 degrees in here, they will start getting poopy butt. This chick right here has what's called poopy butt. If it's stuck really hard, you need to actually like dip it in warm water to get it off. They'll start getting sick and dying and stuff. And so all the stuff you read about it needing to be like 85 to 90 degrees, it's not that you want their entire space to be that hot. You need a nice hot place like under the heat lamps or whatever you're using for the warmth. But you also want some cooler air around them so that it's not just like hot and stuffy everywhere. They're all crowding over there in that corner because I'm over here, they're trying to get away, whatever. But one way to tell if your room is getting too warm is if they're just getting as far away as possible from the heat lamps, if they're just crowding all over the edges. I'll talk more about feed costs later, but for now, their first bag of feed was an organic chick starter feed from Tractor Supply. It's expensive, but I didn't have time to go to the Amish community where I get my regular non-GMO feed. The feed that I fed them after that was a 20% protein starter feed up until they were about 3 weeks old. These chicks are about 3.5 weeks old now. They're still in that like what I call the teenage pimple face stage. Feathers are still coming in and stuff. They're starting to come out of it, especially those ducks, man, those are getting big. I haven't really done anything with them for the last few weeks. They've just been growing, eating. The last couple days, I stopped using the heat lamp. That's been completely turned off the last couple days and nights. Also, the last few days, I've been switching them over to a grower feed. So they start out on a starter feed, then they go to a grower feed. Starter feed, they're on there for about 3 weeks. And then for a few days, I'll mix it like half and half. And so they're pretty much over to that grower feed now. And I'm ready to get these broilers moved out onto pasture. The ducks are gonna stay in here for now until I get their duck pen ready. That'll be in another video. But the laying hen chickens, I think I'm just gonna put them out with the broilers. That way I can just keep feeding them the same and everything. They'll do fine with them out there. This pen here that I use for the broilers is 9 by 13, which I think is slightly ironic. And I'm sorry, I don't have any plans for it, but I will show you a little bit more about it once I get up into the pasture. The metal on the outside of this pen is just corrugated metal, 2 foot wide. It's pretty cheap and it's also very, very light. And yes, I know that most of this would come off when it rains, but until then, it doesn't look very good. So I wanted to clean it off. You can see here on the sides, instead of wood or something, I used 3/4 inch EMT, like electrical conduit, metal stuff, bent it into the shape that I wanted. Some aluminum pieces for bracing that came from the window company that I used to work for. Also, this was aluminum down here. But if you didn't have access to that kind of stuff, like what I used on the front was a 1x6 treated decking board. And so that could be used all the way around the bottom. The EMT works really well because it's not gonna rot. Eventually it might rust, but for now it's doing great. But it bends easily and it's also very lightweight. This wheel mechanism here is very simple. All it is just a shaft sticking out of the side here and a square piece of tubing on top of a pipe, welded onto a pipe with the wheel just about 6 inches up from that. So that basically when you're pushing this down, it lifts the back end up and then this pin holds it into place. I used to use the Salatin style pens that are more like 2 foot tall. And I got tired of not being able to actually go inside them if I needed to catch a chicken, or like when we were ready to take them to get butchered, then I wasn't able to go in there to catch them, had to work something else out. I put these bars across here to hang their feed and water from, so that when I pick it up to move it, the feed and water comes right with it. That way you don't have to come in here and pick stuff up, move it out of the way, move the pen, and then move the stuff back in here. It all comes with it. Otherwise, everything in here is completely wide open. These are not in here as perches. For broiler chickens, they don't need perches, they don't need nest boxes. So if you were to build something like this for laying hens, you would need that in here. It's covered at the top everywhere, and then the sides are open just in the front half. So they've got plenty of completely covered space, and then the covered space out here still lets a lot of airflow through, but it keeps them shaded, which is very necessary because usually you're raising broilers in the heat of summer. Also, to help with airflow, I've got a vent back here. This just to keep the rain out of it, but there's chicken wire here, and then this peak here is not screwed down completely flat against the roof so that air can escape from the top. That way that air can keep moving in, because those chickens will get too hot if they don't have good airflow in there. I'm starting to need to put more feed in their feeder every day. They're running out, so I'm gonna switch to one of these 30-pound feeders. I really love these. I get these metal ones from Tractor Supply. After a while, they tend to get rusty and the little brackets break that hold it on, but I just put a piece of wire on there and it works fine. So I'm gonna put one of these out there, and I'm also gonna put a second drinker out there because they've also been running out of water. One more thing that needs to be done before I bring the chicks out here. Need to look for any spots where there's like holes under the edge of the coop and cover it up so that the chicks don't get out, so predators don't get in. Back here in the back especially, I have the back just a little bit higher up than the sides so that when I'm pulling it, it doesn't catch on the grass as much and stuff. So I pretty much always have to put something under the back here. Move it, cowboy. There you go. The nice thing about these broiler chicks is they're little, fat, and slow. You can already see a difference in how big these Rangers are versus a Rhode Island Red. These Rangers get a lot bigger, a lot faster, but still not so big and fast like the Cornish Cross that they're just totally obese. It's so much fun giving these chickens a good life. Most of the chicken that you buy at the grocery store has never seen actual sunlight. They've never been out on grass. They don't get to live a life like that. They live a life on concrete and just eating grain all day long. So I've got 56 broiler chicks in here, and I think it's like 16 of the laying hen chicks in here. This pen, the size that it is, you could probably do about 75 to 80 chickens in here. And I usually don't have the laying hen chicks in here with them. It just happened that we're raising them at the same time this year. So usually I'm just doing about 55 to 60 in here. And that's a really good amount of space. I like to give them as much space as possible and not push it to its limit, but you gotta also make it as economical and as efficient as possible. And this is about the biggest size of pen that I wanted to move by hand.
Once they're out on pasture, they kind of just become a daily routine. I move them in the morning while Maddie is being milked.
Here we go, chickies.
And our 10-year-old gives them feed and water. These things start eating a lot as they get older. Besides that though, nothing really happens until they're about 10 weeks old.
It's finally time, kind of. We'll actually be taking them up tonight, and they'll stay the night up there, and then they'll actually get processed tomorrow morning. Then we'll have to pick them up tomorrow afternoon, and then get them in bags and everything, and get them in the freezer. These chicken crates here, I made them myself. Very simple. I would say there is a design flaw with them. You have to open the whole door to get the chickens in, and then sometimes when you got several of them in there, try to fly out.
Oh, darn it!
What would be better is just a small door on top that would slide open. You stick a chicken in and slide it back closed. But these are really simple to build. Sorry, I don't have any plans for them or anything. It's just like some 1x4s and some 2x2s in the corners, plywood on the bottom, chicken wire for the sides and the top. I've had these for years and they've worked really good so far. We're at about exactly 10 weeks for these birds, and they are looking really good. Some of the hens are a little smaller, the roosters are huge, and they usually even out pretty well. And the cool thing though, even though they take a little longer than the Cornish cross, they still do get this big, and they're still like running around in there, and they're being pastured birds. Those Cornish cross, they just sit in there and eat feed all day. Small one. Quick, quick. There's the last one. 56 broiler chicks. Not chicks anymore. We've still got the laying hens left in this pen here. We started them at the same time as these, and they are much, much smaller. So they're gonna stay in here for now until they're a little bigger to go out with the rest of the laying flock. And there's 16 of them left in there. They won't take much feed and water at all, so they'll be easy to take care of. These guys here were eating half a bag of feed a day. They did seem like they're pretty good size. A lot of them were big. Some of them were a little smaller. I do feel like they could have gone a little longer, gotten a little bigger. I usually like to go to about 10.5 weeks, and these are at 10 weeks, but I kind of got to work around what it works for me to take them to the processor. So 11 weeks is starting to get a little long. They're starting to get big, and the thing is, like I said, they're eating like half a bag a day. So if I would take them out another week, that'd be about another 4 bags. So you're looking at what, like another $60, $65, something like that. So it becomes a little bit of a balancing act, because as they get a lot bigger, they're gonna grow slower. So to take them out another week, would they really grow fast enough to make it worth it to feed them that much more feed? I don't know. I'm gonna have to stop on the way and get some bags of ice to put in these coolers. And these coolers will go along, and once the chickens are done being butchered, they'll go in the coolers of ice, and I'll pick them up tomorrow. It's starting to get late, but I wanted to wait as long as possible to take them up there for a couple of reasons. One, so that it would be cooler, so they're not stuck in here when it's hot, and it is nice and cool now. And the other reason, just so they don't have to be in there quite as long, so they could stay out in the pasture as long as possible. I just picked up the chicken. They're all in coolers with ice, but they need to get out of there and get put into Ziploc bags and get put in the freezer. We'll show you how we do all that. But I've got a ways to get home, and then Michelle has an appointment tonight that she's got to get to, so I'm only gonna have her help for about an hour. So hopefully we can get that done pretty quickly. Look at that yummy stuff. Hearts and gizzards.
So we got all of our chickens quartered, except for 10 of them, we had them leave whole for things like Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff like that. So the way I bag my chicken is I do 4 of these. It's like a thigh and a drumstick together. I do 4 of those in a bag and 4 wings. So it's like the pieces from 2 chickens. And then I put the breast piece here, 2 of these, into another bag. I just like to have the breast pieces separate from the other pieces, And then all of the backs, so like this, the back with the tail, and then also the neck with the little piece on it, I put all of those into other bags, and I use those to make bone broth. So I just put those straight into my Instant Pot. I had the kids write a 24 on a whole bunch of Ziploc bags so that I know which bags are from this year. In the past, I have not done that, which is really dumb, but I just like skipped that step, and then I never quite knew when the chicken was from. And I do try to get my chickens all used up in a year. I have a few chickens left over downstairs in my basement, but I'm definitely running low. I also, when I put these into my freezer, I try to put them into like separate categories so that I don't have to dig through my stuff to try to find the kind of meat that I want.
While you're filling up bags, I will close them up, and I'm going to then take them down to the freezer. Before I take this down to the freezer in the basement, I want to weigh it. I just have a bathroom scale that's not incredibly accurate, but it should work. I was just telling Michelle that I think this is one place that maybe a vacuum sealer might be a good idea, but we don't have one, and we haven't had one for like 10 years of doing this, and it's worked so far. So for now, we're putting it in Ziploc bags. I'm gonna start getting this chicken put in the freezer. We've got 3 freezers in our basement. We've got one for chicken, one for beef, and one for our veggies and fruit and stuff like that. And I know in one way it's maybe not a good idea in case one of them would give out, then you would lose all of one thing. But it just makes it so much easier to be that organized. So if we want chicken, come down to the chicken freezer and pull out what we want. If we want beef, we go pull out what we want from the beef freezer. And it's not like we're losing any more food. If one of the freezers would give out, they're all usually about equally full. Just because we would have different stuff in there, we'd still lose like the same amount of food. So even if there was different stuff in there, we'd still lose like the same amount of food if one of them gave out. We just keep a good eye on it, make sure that they don't give out without us knowing. So how does this all actually shake out? Is it actually worth it to raise your own chickens? Before I talk about the cost of it, I just want to show you the pasture that they were in. It's been a few days since they've gone, and this is looking absolutely beautiful. It's hard to capture it with the camera, but I can actually see the places that they were are greener than the other parts of the pasture. So right over here is where they started. This is just like lush and green. I could easily put more chickens on this right now, or let the cows graze it right now. Over there is where they ended up, and it's still got like chicken poop and stuff on it, but you can tell that it is just gonna be really nice grass over there. So for the amount of space that you'll need, this pen here is 9 by 13. That's 117 square feet. So you'll need that 117 square feet. If you move it once a day, you'll need to take that square footage times the amount of days in about 7.5 weeks, because they're in the brooder for like the first 3 weeks. That's about 52 days. Take that times 117. That's a little over 6,000 square feet, which is just a hair over 1/8 of an acre, which is not a lot of space to be growing enough chicken to feed a family of 6 for an entire year. And I feel like you could probably do it with even less, because like I said, that part of the pasture over there, I could be putting chickens on there already again. Plus this space can be used for other things for the rest of the year. Our garden takes up 1/8 of an acre, and that's year round. One thing that I wanted to say something about just real quick here, I did a poll on YouTube asking what's holding you back from raising your own meat chickens. And one of the options was, I can't eat something that I raised myself. And I understand that, I get you. One thing I would say to that though is, if you're eating meat, it's coming from somewhere. And the places that most broiler chickens get raised is definitely not a place you would want your meat to be coming from. So I understand the thing of raising something yourself and it being hard, but I will say that I would much rather do that than have my meat come from somewhere that I have no idea where it came from and what kind of life it had to live. So for the cost of raising these broilers, it's really gonna vary a lot depending on what your situation is, what kind of feed you can find, where you can get them processed and things like that. But I will say one of the things that we do to cut down on costs, but to keep our quality up, we get non-GMO feed. It's a little more expensive than conventional feed, but not nearly as expensive as the organic feed. And I feel like non-GMO is the most important. And then also, since they're out on pasture, getting those good nutrients and stuff, I feel like it's a good happy medium. But for the actual cost of everything, listing everything out, I was gonna talk about it, but there's just so many numbers and everything. I feel like it'd be easier for you to read it. So I have a list of everything down in the description, and that will tell you exactly how much we spent and how much you can save by raising your own chicken. This is how we raise our broiler chickens, and I really hope that helped you to see that it can be very simple, and it's something that maybe you can do too We raise our laying hens a little bit differently though, so if you want to see how we do that, watch this video next. Chicken poop on my shirt.
I could watch that backside all day.
And don't forget to hop on over to Thrive Market to get 30% off your first order and get in on their big summer sale.